you're live.
Okay, welcome to House Education, April 8th. We are continuing to discuss S-232, which is dealing with libraries and after school. I'm glad you all pointed out the what on the screen is not necessarily what's in front of us. Want to do that?
No.
Great. All right, we will turn it over to you, Johannes. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure to come down and speak with this august body. Hello, for the record, my name is Johannes Hench. I'm here with the Agency of Education. I am the program manager for Expanded Learning Opportunities, which means I lead the team that oversees and monitors all state and federally funded after-school and summer programming for the Agency of Education. I'm here today to give testimony on S-232. I won't bury the lead. In broad strokes, the Agency of Education does not object to this legislation, but there are some points of clarification that we would like entered into the record. And that's what this testimony is going to be looking at what this testimony is going to be looking at. I apologize. So starting off with the question of eligibility. One of the things that is in this proposed legislation is the addition of libraries and community-based mentoring programs to the list of eligible entities. We just want to clarify and emphasize the fact that the existing language of 16 VSA Section 51, which is the authorizing legislation that supports the after-school special fund, already stipulates that eligible entities for grants funded by this program should be public, private, and nonprofit organizations. We interpret that as written is an extremely broad and expansive eligibility criteria. We do everything in our power to ensure that we are servicing that broad community. We just want to make sure that that is clear and understood. Since this special fund was created, the Agency of Education has put out 5 competitive grants funded by that funding. The public libraries across the state have been eligible to apply for all 5 of those grant competitions. Additionally, within the structure of the grants that we use, we have a 2-track application model, what we call centers versus programs. The details are maybe a little bit fiddly, but broad strokes, it's helpful to think of it as classes versus schools. A program is if you want to add a new thing to something that already exists. A center is if you want to create a new space in which to host things. I apologize if that's unclear, but I've explained the difference to a lot of different audiences, and that's the most distilled way I can get it. So within that program track, there is already space for something like an additional program being housed at a library. Some context around the existing grant competitions. Did your question, sorry?
No, I didn't, because you were about to answer it, I think.
Okay. So to date, we've run 5 competitions. I think there has been some testimony provided that libraries have not or have been rejected from attempts to seek this funding. That's broadly speaking inaccurate. To date, there has not been a library submitting an application for funding. It is the nature of a grant competition that we can't fund people unless they come and ask us for funding. So it is true that we have not granted any funds directly to libraries. We have not received any applications directly from libraries. However, it would be inaccurate to say that there are no libraries around the state benefiting from this funding. Within the existing pool of applicants or awards that we have distributed, we have 24 different libraries around the state who are named programmatic partners on 18 different awards. So they are participating in delivery of programming, and they are benefiting from this funding as partner organizations.
I'm going to interrupt for one and go back up to first page. Grant competitions already exist to fund short-term single activity programs like summer reading programs. That's that sort of reflects what you said about center versus program?
Yes, sir. That would be the program track. So within the specific requirements of a program track award, for example, there is no minimum days of programming. So we have center or program track awardees who are using that funding to stand up a summer programming. We have programs that are delivering, I believe the fewest number of days of programming on a program track is 20, but I may be mistaken on that. So we do have funding available for sort of short-term projects.
Clarify about the next slide, the one that we were just on. So just to clarify, so no libraries have been awarded this grant opportunity on their own necessarily, but are they listed as named partners of folks who are grant recipients?
Yes.
Okay.
So something that was, we felt very strongly established in the Universal After School Task Force report that sort of precipitated this conversation on the After School Special Fund was an emphasis on partnerships between organizations. So that's something that we've tried to carry through in the way we structure the grant competition and the way we encourage and incentivize folks to build their proposals. So something that we ask is for applicants to list the partner organizations who are going to play a role in delivery of programming. And then we also have an expectation that the partner organizations are going to play a role in designing the program, developing the program, evaluating the program. The only difference between being a partner organization and being the top line applicant is that the top line applicant is the one who is the one directly receiving the funding, but they can and often do then subcontract and distribute funds to partner organizations. They're also the ones that are kind of on the hook, so to speak, for monitoring and oversight. So when we are doing our monitoring activities and our ongoing data collections, the top line applicant is the one that is responsible for providing that information back to us.
Does the agency follow up on sort of the money that flows to those sub-grantees? So if money is being dispersed beyond the person or the program receiving the award, is there a reporting mechanism for?
Yeah, so we have a financial reporting mechanism for all grant funds that are distributed. The Agency of Education runs all of our grants through a reimbursement model. We don't, give you an envelope full of cash and then tell you to run the program you proposed. Folks incur costs and then they submit proof of expense to us, and then we return funding. So for something like a subcontract with a partner organization, we would expect to see a memorandum of understanding, a contract if that's appropriate, and then sort of proof of payments distributed before funding can then be distributed to the top line.
Partner organizations such as libraries, could you just give a couple of other examples of what other types of organizations that will be sub opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. Organizations. So I'll preface this by saying I am talking about types of organizations. I'm not remembering exactly whether or not we have contracts, but organizations like Circus Smirkus, which is a group that comes in and does work with youth learning circus arts. So that's a specialist provider coming in and giving program. Also organizations like Up for Learning, which does focused work on increasing youth voice and opportunities. They might come in and do some work with a program to help incorporate sort of the youth perspective into their planning processes. One organization that I can speak to very clearly is Addison Northwest School District. They work with their local library, the Bixby Library, and their local recreation department. And they have a really incredible program that they call Camp Commodore, which between those three organizations, they're able to run 50 weeks of program 5 days a week for their community, which is a tremendous resource.
That helps.
And I assume from what you just described that the library then in Addison Northwest is getting some revenue for their role in providing services.
I believe so, but I would have to confirm that specifically. I will say, it is not a requirement that there is a financial relationship with partner organizations. We find that is often something people do, but it is not something we require with the partnership.
Maybe you already answered this, but can you speak to why maybe no libraries are actually applying for the grants and a lot of these things are coming through those partner relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that we are pretty curious about at the Agency of Education as well. The fact that libraries aren't coming in is something that we have noticed before this whole legislative issue came up, and something that we talk about a lot. I think some of my colleagues are tired of me talking about it. I have a slide. So the way we found it seems to break down into sort of 3 limiting factors that are really causing some difficulty here. The first, and this is not specific to libraries, this is a problem that sort of headwinds we're working against across the board, is communications. All entities, public, private, and nonprofit, is an enormous number of entities, right? That's a massive sweep. Coming from the Agency of Education, I can get a message into the hands of every principal in the state in 15 minutes. I don't have the same capacity to distribute communications out to licensed childcare providers or libraries or boys and girls clubs or parks and recs departments. So a lot of the work we've been doing year after year as we're kind of iterating, refining this, has been identifying those gaps and trying to build new communication partnerships. Like I said, we take very seriously the charge that this should be a universal after-school program, and we want to get this funding into the hands of everyone who is doing this work to support youth. That being said, the communications problem is a constantly evolving target. I firmly believe that if there ever comes a day when I have the email address of every eligible entity, they will all change and move one step to the left. Second piece is there are some structural challenges to the way the Agency of Education distributes grant funding. All grants that the Agency of Education manages are managed through our electronic grants management system. That's a software platform. It is it is good for what it does. It has some quirks and hiccups. One of the things that it requires is entities need to enroll in the system in order to access applications. And that is kind of a surprise step that I think some people are not always expecting. We're mindful of that. We've developed a lot of tools to support people with that. We spent a considerable amount of time during every application window providing tech support around getting into that system, but it would be dishonest of me to sit here and say that it doesn't occasionally cause problems for folks. And then the last kind of piece is personnel and capacity. We know that libraries are often very small organizations. They are often very scrappy organizations. They are often organizations where a very small number of extremely dedicated people are working their absolute hardest all the time to do all of the things that they're trying to do. And it can be difficult in that situation to say, and here's one more thing. Here's an application for you to work on for funding you might receive if your application is selected. So I want to be realistic about the fact that that is also a concern that we're mindful of. And we try very hard because we feel very strongly about this this mandate to support such a broad sweep of applications from a broad range of applicants, to have a fairly robust set of supports available. So months before the application deadline, we publish one-page grant summaries, step-by-step walkthroughs of the sort of technical processes required. We publish a 46-page application guide, which I want to specify is not an application. It's not a 46-page application. That's a guide that includes instructions, guidance, tips, helpful resources. The actual application, when printed out in hard copy, comes to about 5 pages. One of those is a list of assurances at the bottom of which you click, I agree. So
I just want you to repeat that. I think we heard something very different this morning, that it was more like a 20-page application.
the application, when printed out, is 5 pages.
But I also heard you say you have to apply, you have
You have to enroll.
to enroll.
And that-
What's the enrollment process like?
The enrollment process to get into GMS requires an entity to name their authorized representative. So who is a legal, who is an employee who is able to enter into legal agreements on behalf of the organization. They have to provide a TIN number to assure us that they are an entity that is registered with the IRS as either a business or a nonprofit organization. And they have to provide I forget what it's called. UBI number?
Yeah.
Thank you. Libraries, phenomenal resource.
I'd like a question that'll lead to another question. So is this federal grant money or state grant money?
This is all state grant money. All of this comes out of the after-school special fund that was created 3 years ago. It is the sales and use tax on cannabis.
I thought it was, I just wanted to clarify. So what I'm hearing from about this issue is that libraries aren't completing applications because they can't meet standards in the application, such as like specialized staff. And it seems that it's designed around the model that is around federal grant standards. And even though it's for state money, so we're using federal rules to give state money. And that, while that's working well for schools, the concern that I'm hearing is that it's not working for the smaller non-school programs. So those are the two parts
Yeah.
that I hear that the
I
library.
would love to respond to that because I have heard this. This is not the first time I've heard this narrative that the grant requires like specialized staff. It has been put to me that my grant requires people to hire licensed special educators, which that would be news to me. That has never been an expectation or a requirement. All the requirements for the grant are in the guide that we put forward. We don't require any specialized staff. What we do say is that programs should be delivered by highly qualified staff. However, we have left that language intentionally elastic because we want to be flexible to a different range of organizations. A licensed teacher is absolutely highly qualified. However, if the program coming in is, if Petra Cliffs in Burlington wants to run an after-school rock climbing program, a middle school geography teacher is not the qualified person to do that. So qualification is responsive to programming being delivered. With the example of libraries, I would say a librarian is absolutely a highly qualified person to run programming in that setting.
What about, you're using federal grant standards for this program. I mean, and it's state money, wouldn't it make sense to try and find a way to make it, the program, maybe you don't need to follow the federal guidelines, you can use state to kind of help these smaller state organizations?
I would need a little bit more clarity on what federal guidelines people are hearing they need to meet.
Between 21C and.
Right.
I suspect that that's what's happening. So within the purview of my team, we have two very similar from the end user grants, but very different on the back end grants. One of which is this Act 78 state funded program. The other is the 21C federally funded program. And there are occasionally crossway. Literally this morning before I drove in, I got a phone call from somebody in the field who had misunderstood which grant they had received and was very upset about an expectation that they thought was placed upon them. Just to say that is an ongoing kind of communications issue, trying to clarify roles there. If there is somebody who is under the impression that there are federal requirements they're being asked to meet, I would very much like to speak with them and know what exactly it is they're seeing, so that we can address that.
I'll see about talking to those and see if I can get in contact with you.
Please, I'm eager and happy to talk to folks from the field.
Awesome, thank you.
Kate?
I'm wondering if I was looking at filling out one of these, if I was a library, a 46-page applications guide scares me for a 5-page application. I don't,
That's
daunting,
That's
especially with my bare bones staff, just trying to keep my library doors open to help my community.
That's fair. And so to be honest, we've had a lot of conversations around how much is too much when it comes to guidance, and at what point it stops being helpful and starts being this overwhelming pile of guidance documents. And where we have kind of tried to land is a little bit of a split the difference both and model, where we put all of our documents on our public facing website with the assumption that a person could come in completely flat footed, knowing nothing about our program, and using just the materials on our website, they could apply. However, that's not the only thing we put out. During the application period, we are also hosting live trainings over Zoom. We have trainings that are open to all eligible entities. And we hold office hours during the entire application period for folks who want sort of more targeted one-on-one support. So it is daunting. I'm not going to stand here and say that a 46-page document is not a little bit harrowing. And I wrote, I think, 44 of those 46 pages. So I'm mindful of that. However, it's not something we sort of throw out into the world and then walk away from. When we do try to have different avenues and different sort of support structures.
How much money annually do you have to grant?
It depends on, because the amount is tied to the sales and use tax receipts on cannabis, it fluctuates from year to year. At present, we are sort of safely hovering around 10.
Our time is somewhat limited. Is the overall message from the agency, we support this bill, but frankly, the concerns that are trying to be addressed in it are already addressed or perhaps non-existent?
Yes, I think that's an accurate summary.
Could you speak to the part that says, it talks about the agency may allocate a portion of funds annually to the Department of Libraries for the purpose of providing subgrants? I realize it's not a shall, it's a may.
Yeah.
But has that concept been discussed? Or would it basically require the Department of Libraries to apply for?
So that language was added in I think a relatively late version of the Senate bill. Obviously, as the legislature, it is your prerogative to pass whatever you believe to be in the best interest of the state, and it's our job to implement on that. We have not at this time really discussed what implementation on that line would look like. If it passes, we will take that under advisement. I will say we are committed, irrespective of what happens in this room and in the State House, to continuing to work with the Department of Libraries. Since our last application round closed, we have met to review our application materials to sort of try to make them a little bit more conducive to libraries and make them a little bit more friendly to that audience. I've also been in contact with the Department of Libraries advisor for children and family programming, children and adult programming. Yes. The youth services consultant of the Department of Libraries to try to build up more of a bespoke training series to kind of make sure that the folks who are eligible for this funding are aware of that fact and feel supported in pursuing it. So irrespective of the legislation, we are committed to supporting libraries. Like everyone in this room, I assume we believe libraries are a good thing and that they should be funded and supported.
Pretty controversial position. You're
I don't know. I'm not afraid to say the bold statement. We are pro libraries. We think they have a vital role in the communities they serve. We think they're an essential part of youth services across the state. We think that many of the concerns here can be addressed with the existing legislation, but we have no objection to the new legislation if that's the direction you choose to go.
Rob, right?
Quick follow-up on the 10 million or 7 million or 6 million, whatever you get each year. Do you allocate 100% of it?
So
Goal to allocate 100% of it.
I speak to that in greater depth in the legislative report. I believe you have a copy of.
Yes. So
Because something we have found looking at 20 years of experience running the federally funded after-school program in the state, we have found that one of the vital elements of standing up after-school programs and really supporting them to become self-sustaining and supporting them is multi-year commitments. So our grant programs are designed around a multi-year award commitment. So we don't try to distribute all of our funding every year to a new cohort of awardees. What we try to do is distribute enough funding every year so that we can stand up new programs and continue to support our existing programs. What that looks like in practice is we are building to a place where every year 20% of our funding is going to new grants, and then the rest is supporting existing grants. We're on a sort of a 5-year model. So every year there's a cohort in year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of implementation. And then as the year changes over, those year 5 folks drop off, and that funding gets opened up for a new cohort of new awardees.
That's somewhat in a little bit in conflict with what you just explained to me. It sounds like mostly what you want to fund are totally split philosophy, multi-year programs. But are you saying that there is still room though for the short-term single activity?
Yes. Yeah, that's inclusive of both the program and the center. So we're of the new funding, it works out to about a 50-50 split between money that's going to the bigger programs and money that's going to the smaller programs.
Representative Brady?
Is there a place on the AOB website to see the current program center? I see all the breakdown of the 21C grants over the years and lots of the documentation and the supporting guidance around how to apply, but just to see who the current recipients are of the center dollars, the program dollars. And I saw a couple charts in your report, but I don't see Circus Smirk. I didn't realize that. So I don't know where those appear or how to see that list.
Yes, so I do want to clarify. Circus Smirkus would not appear on that list. They're not a direct recipient. They're a partner organization with direct recipients. At present, we do put out a press release with each round of competitions announcing the new awardees. But it has been brought to my attention that we do not just have a standing list of current awardees. That is something we're working to rectify. And it will be.
Where are those press releases then, just to see kind of where the investment is going right now since.
Yeah, that's a great question for our comms team.
If you could follow up, it would just be great to see now that we're 3-4 years into it. Who's in, yeah.
And there is in the legislative report, there should be a full listing of all of the existing awardees as well as,
Right, so I see, so is it, okay, so like in the table, that list, so anything else is a partner
yes, so
organization.
this,
These are the only entities that have,
We-
that are the actual like recipients.
yes, in the legislative report, we only list the awardees, not the partner organizations.
That might answer it.
Any other questions? So again, summarize. Supportive, if we want to move in that direction, not really necessary, given the way the program is set up.
Yes.
But it sounds like it can't harm anything to put a double bind on it.
Yes. Great. Thank you, Johannes, very much. Appreciate your time.
It's a pleasure.
Oh, I have a question. Sorry, maybe this will not be on the record. Is it possible? I was just looking at that chart that Representative Brady was looking at in the legislative report. Is it possible for the same organization to get a grant award from both program tracks? Like you can get a program award and you can get an organizational award?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Just wanted to clarify.
So one of the criteria we use when we evaluate award, or one of the criteria we use when we evaluate applications is what is the existing level of programming available in that area. And when we are kind of evaluating that, we would just fold the existing award kind of into that consideration. So if an entity is in an area that is critically underserved and they have an existing award, that would be less detrimental to their getting a new award versus if somebody is in an area that is fairly well supported, reasonably well supported, and they have an existing award, then we might determine that, well, with that existing award and the other resources available, we don't feel that this is in the best interest of the equitable distribution of funds goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Catherine, welcome. Catherine, did you have testimony that you were presenting or just,
I do not have written testimony today.
if you did, we had it. All right, whenever you're ready.
My name is Catherine Dilnow. I also go by Kathy. I'm the state librarian and the commissioner of the Department of Libraries, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with you today about S232. As the chair has clarified, I didn't provide any written testimony today. My focus is just answering questions you may have about the bill. I will give a couple of remarks first, just very gestural, which is that the department supports the language in the bill as it stands right now. Having come out of the Senate, it is, we are comfortable with the language. There was a really robust conversation around some of the questions in the Senate, and we are supportive of the bill in its current form. I don't have any reservations about it. There are aspects of this bill that are not about the section which my colleague just presented testimony on. So I just want to highlight a couple of things for you. I did want.
We really need to get into section 2 and try to figure that out. Very important.
Section 2 of the Vermont Libraries Day. You're right. It is very important. So I heard I watched the walkthrough this morning with Beth St. James, and then I watched Senator Hardy's testimony also. So there are a couple of key things I really need to point out to you just as an informational piece. Number one, Vermont Libraries Day, you're not going to get the day off. We're not going to get the day off. You are going to support your library. You're going to visit your library, I hope, and school kids will visit their libraries. That date was kind of selected by, I don't know, popular consent with folks in the Vermont Library Association. It's a great day to have Vermont Libraries Day because it's not something that's happening at a time that's super busy in the library calendar. So it's not at the same time as things like National Book Week or other holidays. And I think Senator Hardy talked about the timing of it. What's really nice about Vermont Libraries Days is that it's library ambivalent or library neutral. You can celebrate any kind of library that you like on that day. Your school librarian and your community can really do it up and have a big party for the school library that day and really encourage kids to use those resources. Public libraries, academic libraries, it's really for any kind of library. If you want to come to the Vermont Historical Society's library in Barre that day, please visit us. That's where the Department of Libraries is also located, and the State Library. We welcome you there on any day, but that one especially.
Can you remind me, what day was it?
Third Monday.
Third Monday.
The third Monday.
Yeah.
What is the actual day?
It's gonna change.
Oh, right, okay, I guess I meant this year. I can look that up myself.
Yeah, so it's really just a no-cost way to raise the profile of libraries in the state. And I hope that if nothing else from this bill goes through, Section 2 survives the House. I'm going to skip over Section 3 for a minute because I'm sure that you'll have more questions for me about that. Section 4, early education. A couple of years back, you all should have received, it's not this past December, but the prior December, you should have received a copy of the early literacy report from the Department of Libraries. I just wanted to call your attention to it in case you didn't get a chance to look at that, or if you weren't on the committee at the time. The department was asked to talk about the role of libraries in potentially doing book gifting programs. But one of the things that we found during that report writing was that there's actually a need for more continuing education, more professional development for library staff who serve children and who provide early literacy programs. So our report covers that a little bit, and I believe that that's one of the reasons that the bill sponsor included that section, which would just make some of the resources and opportunities available to public libraries to train public librarians who serve youth to really do science and evidence-based programming. So we know that kids love going to story time. We know that parents and caregivers love bringing them to story time. It's really important in story times that the parents are learning. Even though it looks like it's a program for children, it's really a program for the adults in their lives where the librarian models how to read a book. And you probably have, I don't know if any of you are parents, but some of you may have been to story time and you're like, what are they doing? Like, this is not how we read the book at home. So that modeling is really important to teaching the parents how to engage with the book, how to ask questions that get the kids' language skills kind of developing. And so that's really programming that starts, if we are supporting our libraries well in our communities, that program starts at birth and goes right up through when they're in preschool. Preschool classes come over to the library, and then we hand kids over who are really ready to read. But more than that, they're ready to learn in general, and they're more resilient. And these are some of the things that we cover in that report. So I'd really encourage you to take a look at the report. This really is just saying, again, public libraries, which can already apply for this funding, could apply for it. They don't see themselves in that space. A lot of library directors don't see themselves in that space, and they wouldn't even think of perusing the AOE, Agency of Education website, and looking at grant opportunities. Calling it out helps them to see that this is an opportunity, and that can further the state's literacy goals. So that's one of the reasons it's a great idea from the department's perspective to say, no, really, we mean you. The legislature means you. You can go for these grants. The next section, I think of this as the book wagon section. I believe you've already talked about book wagons a little bit this morning. This section 5 really brings some of the language in our state statute about the Department of Libraries and its duties and functions into the century we are all in currently, the 21st century. A book wagon is a very antiquated term. The Department of Libraries, just a little bit of history, the Department of Libraries had book wagons from 1922 to 1974. My own uncle testified because he loved the book wagons and didn't want to see them discontinued. That's the family legend. Relative by choice. He's not a blood relation. But I have to say, my Uncle John has apparently been in a committee just like this many decades back. Those were department-run bookmobiles to support rural communities. He was a teacher up in the Hardwick area. So that was a program run by the department. I want to reassure you, and strangely, at least 3 of you in this room right now have bookmobiles in your communities. I believe that the Cobley Library in Lyndonville has a bookmobile. I believe that the Franklin Grand Isle bookmobile, that is your entire library. It's in addition to the brick and mortar ones, but they are a full public library by themselves that operates completely out of a bookmobile, which is really cool. And it's a great way to serve the community because some little libraries are open certain days and not other days, and that bookmobile makes the rounds. And then our third bookmobile that the department's aware of is at the Dorothy Alling Library in Williston. So yay for bookmobiles. This would not get rid of your bookmobile, I want to assure you. It just means that we're truing up statute to reflect that the department no longer maintains staff and bookmobiles to provide that service directly. Your local library is more than welcome to have bookmobiles. We'll help them and guide them and consult them if they wish to, but we don't have regional libraries anymore, and we don't have regional bookmobiles anymore. What we do is we help people with interlibrary loan. If you look in our budget, you'll see that we spend money on a system where all the libraries can see what's checked in at different libraries at different moments in time. At this moment in time, you can move books around the state through interlibrary loan. You can get books from out of state. You can get books from out of the country. We're moving books all the time, and we have a courier system through which we move books. We learned through the 2023 working group report on the status of libraries in Vermont that movement of books is really important. It's important in big libraries where people may be saying, well, I'm writing a book about something and I need a really esoteric reference book. It's hard to get it here in Burlington or Rutland, but it's also really important in libraries that have physical spaces the size of this room. And from my perspective, it's especially important for those libraries to maintain access to collections because it means that they can have the most popular items in the physical space for you all in the community to use. And then they can bring in things to supplement at no cost to the patron. The department runs the interlibrary loan system and runs a courier program. Libraries, not every library is yet participating, but we continue growing the program. And we grant some of our federal funds to those local libraries that participate to support them in participating by offsetting some of the costs of the courier. That's the kind of thing that we want to be sure is captured in statute because that's what we do and we have done for many years. So really just shifting the language so it more accurately reflects what we do. Similarly, we don't want to be in a situation where somebody says we are limited to either physical or digital books. That's why there's inclusive language. I heard this morning that the person that we worked with in legislative council at refining the language in that section is not representing the bill with you all, but he and I spoke for about a half an hour about inclusive and exclusive ands and ors. And it was really for me as a librarian, the Boolean discussion was great. And I feel very comfortable with the words right now. So that language is there. The other thing to note is that in section 6, this is not a concern that has come to the department yet, but I understand that it did come to Ledge Council. If Tucker were available, he might speak more to that. And I know he testified in the Senate Education Committee about it. My understanding is that there have been instances where incorporated public libraries are getting told by municipalities from which they receive funding that the municipality will determine who's on the board. And an incorporated entity functions separately, even if they receive funding from the municipality. As Senator Hardy explained this morning, there's municipal public library governance structure and incorporated public library structure. And this section would really put into, this language in section 6 would put into 22 VSA section 143, which is the municipal public library section. It would just call out, this does not apply to public libraries, because when people are searching online, they might be confused. So they would say it only applies to municipal and not to incorporated, so that there's less confusion. Regarding municipal bonds, it's again an instance where people don't realize they can support their incorporated public library through municipal bonding. We've seen a really great project in Middlebury where the town of Middlebury has supported the incorporated public library, the Ilsley, with a really great library capital improvement program that they're working with. So some libraries and some communities are realizing they can do that, but a lot of questions have come up about, can we actually have a municipal bond for a library which the municipality doesn't own? And the answer is yes. So this just really inserts clarifying language. The repeal of the audiovisual revolving fund, we don't use that fund. We don't need it. It's just kind of messing up our spreadsheets. Please get rid of the
How
audio.
much is in it?
None, nothing. We don't leave money on the table. We're good spenders.
We have to build a new high school with it. But
The media center at the high school, maybe, but so the final section is section 3, which begins on page 10, related to after school and summer special fund. And the department supports the section as written, and I'm happy to answer questions you may have about that. Or any other questions.
I guess the special fund language is motivated, I think it was motivated by a perceived difficulty in applying for this money. We've heard conflicting accounts of what that means, 20-page applications, 5-page applications. Can you shed some light on that?
I haven't actually applied for this. I've looked at the application materials. The application is different in kind, I would say, from the department's summer reading application. So we have a modest amount of money in the department that we have been granting out to support statewide summer reading. For the entire state, I believe our allocation this year is about $50,000 to support those summer reading grants. And so that means each library gets $350. We do give it to them in advance. They're really small. They don't have a lot of money to float. So we have the authority in Bulletin 3.5 to make awards of money, especially in small dollar amounts. It seems appropriate. We have an application that is, it's a 2-page application, and it has a 3-page guidance document. And that's what they're used to. It's not federal money that we've been granting to them for this process. It's actually a 2-page application with a cover sheet, and then I think a 2 or 3-page guidance document. We, like our colleagues in Agency of Education, we launch things with a webinar, we meet with them, we answer their questions. We do a lot of hand-holding. I'm going to be honest, getting folks to even tell us their own UEI number, their unique entity identifier, they can get very confused. They have to go back and forth. They have a board that is changing. You know, the board of trustees of each library can change over time. Sometimes the person submitting the application hasn't done it before, or they have a new library director. So we really work with them extensively to get out as much of that grant funding as we can to them. And that's what they're used to. So I'm not surprised that a library might say, oh my gosh, I feel daunted by the application process that was described.
Josh?
Are you able to elaborate at all on, because you mentioned the federal grant process, are you able to elaborate on any of the concerns that are out there about the federal grant application standards that may or may not be being used?
Again, I'm not expert in the application for the Agency of Education grant. I did look at it because this year the department had run into a situation where we didn't think we had sufficient funding to actually make the $350 grant awards to public libraries. So we looked at it at that time, and I think the one thing that is helpful in this, one thing that's helpful to the department in this draft is that it clarifies that the department can apply. We didn't see that we could apply, to be frank. We just didn't see ourselves as potential recipients of the grant. As far as the application overall, I think it's possible that we were looking at something that may have been an older draft. We've met with Johannes and kind of talked through what we had looked at, and I feel like we're on a really good path right now with partnering more closely with the folks in Johannes's team. And I also think just in that same section 3, we were welcomed to attend the committee. The chair of the after school and summer special fund committee invited the department to participate because she used to work with us closely in her former role. And she knows that libraries are really involved in summer reading, and she thought, and after school programming. And so she invited us to participate. We're very eager to join as a full member so that we can have an impact in helping to make sure that libraries have access to these funds moving forward. I'm not sure that answered your question, but I'm not really expert in
So
that.
just didn't know if you had more information, so I'll just have them reach out.
Great, great. Thanks very much for making the time. And, yeah, it's been frankly very helpful, especially with the sort of stuff that is peripheral to the after-school money.
Well, I hope that I'll see you all for Library Day celebration on Monday in October. Thank you all for your support.
It may not be the third Monday in October. We're going to discuss that.
Saturday, Tuesday in July.
Every library in the state that day. There you go. Bring your book back.
Let's stop here. Committee back at 3:00.